If you were watching it as a movie, it might open in two worlds at once. A boy in the New Mexico desert, barefoot, dirt smeared, trailing behind a scrappy dog named Scamp. He's 9 years old. His father lives with him but doesn't remember his name. Doesn't remember much at all. Cut now to a man on stage decades later, electric under stage lights, speaking to a packed room about transformation, resilience, and the long road to impact. A man who has delivered more than 4,000 talks across the world, each one rooted in a brutal truth. You don't outrun your past, you shape something new from it. HR Huntsman grew up inside a storm: alcoholism, instability, violence, the kind of childhood that swallows people whole. But somewhere in that wreckage, he made a quiet, seismic decision. I will not pass this on. I will build something different. He joined the Air Force, not to serve necessarily, but in reality to escape. He wanted to be rich. Maybe that would fix the hurt. But then someone gave him a challenge he couldn't shake. Don't just be successful, be useful. That line cracked something open, and from that moment, HR devoted himself not to money, but to meaning. He built, he built humanitarian organizations. He's drilled wells in Africa, rebuilt homes after hurricanes, and built counseling centers for families like the one he never had. And along the way, he learned that you can't scale impact without leadership. You can't heal culture without confronting the pain. And you sure as hell can't change a system without first changing your mindset. Today, he's the founder of Leader's Edge, and he's not done, not even close. Hello, and welcome back to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Mayer, and if you've been here before, you know we keep this show simple. It's all about the people of manufacturing. The ones who lead, the ones who build, the ones who lead, the ones who make, and the ones who've lived the kind of stories that you just can't fake. Today's episode is a special one because we have HR Huntsman here. His story, his scars, and his perspective on what real leadership looks like hits like a ton of bricks. He's the kind of guest who leaves a mark wherever he goes, and it's a mark on your heart. And while you're here, check out themfgconnector.com for past episodes, show notes, and all the new stuff we're building. You'll also find our other show, Work But Make It Human, and our video series on the Manufacturing Connector YouTube channel. And I'm not done yet. I've got 4 new show concepts in the works that I'm super stoked about, and I can't wait to share more with you guys soon. But for now, let's get into HR Huntsman. HR Huntsman, welcome to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. How are you doing today?
Brother, thank you so much for having me. I'm doing fantastic. I appreciate the honor.
Man, I am so happy. This has been a long time in the making. We first spoke, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago. It's been a while.
All right.
Schedules. I mean, we both, I think, had to reschedule the recording at least once for conflict. So here we are. It's a beautiful day. The sun is shining. It's going to be really hot here in Phoenix, but that's the place we choose to live. But excited to hear your story. You've got an amazing story, HR, that I'm excited to hear myself, but I'm also excited to hear or for the audience to hear. HR, I kind of teased before I hit the record button, before we started. I've got a new icebreaker. I didn't tell you what that icebreaker question is.
Awesome.
You're one of the first 4, I think. So you don't get the benefit of having an episode come out with this new icebreaker that you can listen to.
You're scaring me.
It's fun. It gives us an idea of who HR is. So HR, if your life was a movie, what genre would it be? What would the opening scene be? And who would play you?
Oh my goodness. The genre would be, I hope it would be an inspiring story of dramatic change from where a kid starts and where that kid ends in life. I would hope it would inspire people to believe in the power of mindset, to believe in the power of learning and growth, and that you can achieve that one person can make a difference in the world. I would hope that's what it'd be. And what was the second part? Who would play me?
Who would play you, and what's the opening scene?
The opening scene, I think the way, if I were to direct this movie, the opening scene would be me on stage ending a powerful talk about the power of humanity, the power of inspiration, the power of change, the power of impact. That'd be the opening scene. And then cutting back to me as a little kid with my dog Scamp in the New Mexico desert about where this journey began. I might do some sort of cut like that.
I like it. I like it. And what I do know about your journey, I think that that is very appropriate. Who would play you?
Well, I'd love for Denzel Washington to play me, but that's probably not true to my ethnicity. Let's go with, gosh, who do I like? I'm drawing a blank now. Who played Lincoln?
Is that Daniel Day-Lewis?
Daniel Day-Lewis. Yeah, let's have Daniel Day-Lewis play me.
That's a good one. I
He's
like that a lot.
he's amazing. That's Shooting for
Yeah.
the Stars. I mean, that guy is just amazing.
Well, and what a versatile actor. I mean,
Yeah,
you
for
look
sure.
at from Lincoln to There Will Be Blood to
Yeah,
Last of the Mohicans. I mean,
yeah,
the man has some range. So
yeah.
I think that's a good one. I think that's a good pick for you. He's got the depth to really portray at least the adult you in the right light. So I like that. I approve.
That's a great
Manufacturing
question.
Culture Podcast, stamp of approval on that one. All right, HR. Now we've had a little bit of fun. Let's talk about culture. It is a Manufacturing Culture Podcast. What is culture to you?
Culture to me, this is a great question, and it's something that we do a lot of work on. All the different companies we work with, manufacturing, construction, medical, legal. It's one of the main focuses of our work, but it's so hard to define and describe, isn't it? Like, you can't see it under a microscope. You can't, it's not a scientific exploration to find something. So the way I describe it to my clients and the way I'll share it here is how your people feel on Sunday about going to work on Monday.
Love it.
What are they
Yes,
thinking about?
absolutely.
Are they dreading going to work tomorrow? Are they excited to be a part of something purposeful and meaningful? Are they ruining the hours that they have to count down to the oh crap moment when the alarm goes off? I mean,
Yes.
what we build behind the scenes and with them is how they feel on Sunday before they answer the bell on.
I love it. That's such a great answer. And I think very relatable to most of us who have had jobs who we get that Sunday scary feeling where we
Yeah,
start to dread shit.
yeah.
We have to do this again tomorrow.
I got to see Susie. I got to report to Bob. I got to, oh crap. Or
Yeah.
man, I can't wait to get back to that project we're working on. It's going to be meaningful. The changes we're making, the process flow improvements, the whatever.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Great answer. I think I'm going to make a calendar or book or like coffee table book about all these answers because I've gotten some great
I'm sure.
answers from these guests and to your point there's a definition of culture, right? There's that Merriam-Webster definition, but what culture truly means to every individual is so unique, right? And so I loved hearing your take on it, especially knowing what you do and how you do it, how you go about it. And we're going to find out now what made HR into the dude that is here with me today. So let's jump in a time machine real quick. Let's go back in time. I want to hear your story. We want to hear your story. Let's go back to where it all started for you. That flashback with your dog Scamp in New Mexico, which was such a memorable moment that I don't remember everything about every pre-interview I have, but I remember you talking about Scamp and being in New Mexico. So take us back to that time. What shaped those early years and how did those experiences really shape what came next?
Yeah, everything I do today is directly related to the childhood I had. I grew up in a broken, dysfunctional, alcoholic, angry, abusive home. I think my early childhood, which I don't remember, of course, was on track to be pretty healthy. My mom and dad married, seemingly had a good life. My dad worked for NASA. He was literally a rocket scientist, pretty sharp dude. And he had his first stroke when I was 18 months of age. Of course, I don't remember this. I only know my mom telling me this story. and he stayed in the home with us. My mom then had to become his caretaker, and I grew up with him as a little kid. He taught me how to ride a bike and play on a swing, but he didn't remember who I was. He didn't remember yesterday. He couldn't remember where his bedroom was. Every day I remember him asking, it's drilled in my brain, where's my bedroom? Second door on the left. And when I was 9, I found him dead out in the backyard. And I didn't know he was my dad. My mom didn't tell me he was my dad until after he had passed away. And so that left a huge hole in my life. And in the interim, she marries my first stepdad. So he's in the house. I have 2 half brothers through him while my dad is there. I mean, just kind of a messed up situation. It was normal to me at the time, right? I don't know anything. I'm just a kid. That first stepdad runs off with another woman, all kinds of men in and out of my life. My mom eventually remarried a second stepdad, more alcohol, more anger. This is where physical abuse came in. I can remember him hitting her. One time I'm washing dishes at my first outside of the family gas station job, and I hear this fight out in the parking lot, and it's my stepdad kicking my mom out of the truck as they drive off, and they've been yelling and screaming. And so in my high school years, I can remember standing in the parking lot in the Texas club right there as I watched him drive off. I watched him fight. I was horrified, embarrassed, ashamed. The staff is figuring out this is my parents. And I remember thinking, I need to get out of this cycle. I didn't know exactly what I wanted, but I knew I didn't want to perpetuate that anymore. I knew I didn't want that. And I somehow knew I needed to change. Like looking back now, what I needed to change was mindset. All the things I was being handed. Kids like, you don't go to college, you're not going to amount to much. You can either be a ditch digger or join the military, like those kinds of things, that I was going to reject those and I was going to shoot for something else. So I knew I had to change my mindset. And so my journey from that day to this day has been a change of trajectory, mindset, impact. I set a course for, I want to make the world a better place. I don't want to perpetuate what I'm being handed. So I joined the military because kids like, you don't go to college. And so I joined the military, the Air Force. I scored really high on the ASVAB. And literally I was told I could pick any job I wanted. I picked electronic engineering, software engineering. I'd already written some computer programs in high school. I was pretty good in computer programming. And that's when I met John Simmons. So this is where the trajectory of my life is going to change. I decided I wanted to be rich, because if I could be rich, then I could paper over all the insecurity and pain, right? I achieved something. I'm not a trailer trash white kid, which is what I was told my whole life. I grew up in southern New Mexico, and I was going to paper it over. And John Simmons, quoting Einstein, I didn't know this was an Einstein quote at the time. He said, H, you can either be successful, or you can be useful. I want you to be useful. Take all that pain and do something useful with it. Because I shared with him my journey. Don't just try to be successful, be useful. So I decided I want to be useful. And that was an impacting conversation that changed the entire course of my life, changed all my courses, got out of the Air Force, and started my first company when I was 28. And I decided I was going to change the world. And I didn't know anything about leadership. I know leadership culture. I didn't know anything about cultural psychology or cultural anthropology or social. I didn't know anything about organizational stuff. And I started building my first organization from scratch, and trial and error and passion and dogged determination to make the world a better place. I grew it from scratch to very large. And along the way, I learned a whole bunch of stuff about leadership. So there's the beginning of my story.
And so John Simmons
Yeah.
seems like a very influential person in this journey, or at least in that realization that you had a calling beyond what success may look like,
Yeah.
or what your perception of success may look like.
That's right.
And so he said his insight to you was go do something useful. And when he said that, was that the moment that it was leadership that was going to be useful? What to you
Yeah.
was that moment that you said, "Okay, here's useful. I'm going to change the world, but I'm going to now change it through the way people lead."
Yeah, no, I actually stumbled on that. What that meant to me at the time. So the first company was a nonprofit humanitarian organization. I departed from software and engineering and all that stuff that, would have made me really, really wealthy. And over the course of 25 years, We did all kinds of projects around the world, built a team. So we've drilled wells in Africa. We've built orphanages in Africa and India, built vegetable gardens in Kenya, helped build medical clinics, water projects. We chased hurricanes here in America after Ike and Katrina, and we worked in Galveston and New Orleans and rebuilding homes, built a counseling center for drug and alcohol dependency. I grew up in a household of addiction, so helping people break that cycle, marriage counseling center for broken families. I came from a broken family, so worked on the street in the homeless shelters and built food programs and after school programs and youth programs and all across Mexico, drug and alcohol rehab centers and homes we built all across Mexico. I've spoken to about 400,000 people. I get in about 4,000 talks around the world in India and Kenya, Uganda, obviously here in the States. And so my focus was all these great projects to change people's lives, just like my life had been impacted. And so, Jim, to answer your question, what I learned along the way is I built from scratch. And when I retired a few years ago, we had 200 staff working in 5 countries around the world. That you can't build dreams like that without building leadership infrastructure. You can't scale without developing and empowering leaders. And believe it or not, that's what I actually fell in love with. As much as I love the projects that we did, what I fell in love with and have given my passion to in my retirement years to is developing amazing teams and amazing leaders, because I believe, and I've seen around the world from Hudson, Kenya, and working with the Maasai to here in boardrooms in America, I've seen leaders change the freaking world. And so what I fell in love with was leaders that impact teams and impact lives and impact workplaces. So that's how the evolution came to Leader's Edge now in my second half of my retirement years, is giving myself back to building leaders in amazing workplaces.
I love that, and we'll talk about Leader's Edge here in a moment. But I want to continue on with this arc before you retired, because you have built successful organizations over the course of your career. How did your values shape the direction of those organizations, and how have your values evolved over time?
Yeah. I can tell you my leadership approach has dramatically evolved. Again, as I've shared, I didn't grow up in any kind of leadership structure. So my idea of leadership was like John Wayne. I grew up watching John Wayne movies. My mom was a John Wayne fan. So, this imposing, powerful force of nature that can command forces and get these amazing. And so this singular, dramatic, powerful, charismatic force that does no wrong. Like that was my idea of, that's what leadership is. So I began leading with kind of that command and control type idea, even though I didn't know anything. I mean, I knew I was just like the imposter syndrome was enormous. Like I'm building and speaking and like inside I'm going like, I don't know what the crap I'm doing. And that began to catch up to me. And I began to realize that's not actual true leadership. Leadership is the empowerment and development of other people. It's not how well a singular human being can command from the front of the room. And so that began to evolve greatly through lots of trial and error and tears and blind spot recognition and people telling me, bro, like this is not the best way to do this. And so learning to empower people and value that was a big evolution for me. And it's become a big foundation of what I do and teach now.
Sure. Awesome. And so I think I know why investing in young leaders is so important to you, but talk us through uh, the motivation a little bit more in depth behind creating Leader's Edge, and what the outcomes are that people can expect when they go through the program.
Sure. Listen, leadership is freaking hard. Let's just be real. That thing, one of your opening questions about culture. Well, culture is this amorphous blob that's hard to describe. That's why it's easy to focus on KPIs and deliverables and tangibles, which absolutely need to be done. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
100% performance excellence high. But the reason a lot of people don't focus on culture is because it's this invisible, like it's ooey and gooey. So helping people focus on what I now know in my wisdom of scars is that focusing on those things that connect us and build us and cause us to dream and inspire to and aspire to helping young people. And the reason I say young people now is just because I'm old. So most of the people I work with are younger than me. So I say young people because it's that multiplication effect that when we get into our 50s and 60s and beyond, in my mind, it's an actual absolute responsibility that we help build up the next generation to be better than we are.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a firm believer that as leaders, our job is to create the next leader.
For sure.
Um, and people who don't look at it that way aren't the best leaders to work for. And I've worked for them, right? I've
Yeah,
worked for
sure.
people who wanted to keep me, quote unquote, in my lane and not develop me as a professional, as a leader. But I think for me, part of what I do is innate. How often do you find that people go through Leader's Edge have a certain skill set, a certain innate ability to lead, and how much of it is developed through the program?
Yeah. So program, as you put it, it's comprehensive in that what I think sets us apart is we do focus on that human leadership development side as we're focusing on the systems and processes and the measurements and the KPIs. So looking at both things at the same time, forcing people to realize you have your human infrastructure and then so your people infrastructure, then you have your process infrastructure. And you can't do one without the other. You can't be only people and ooey gooey and sit in the break room and talk about our feelings all day. We have work to do. And so motivating those people around the value and meaning of work, the nobility of work. So that's a fundamental thing for me, that work is a noble thing to do. So the leaders that are really successful, Jim, are the leaders that believe that work has this nobility to it and treating people with respect and honor and humanity. Those leaders that have some of those foundational core beliefs are the ones that really succeed. How they get there, whether that was trained in their home or they had a good mentor like me about the nobility and value of both work and humanity, those are the leaders that really have the potential to make a difference.
Who are some examples of that person, that leader?
In my life or historically?
I'll take both because I think you've probably seen a lot. I mean, I look at you, HR, you're like the Greg Popovich of leadership coaching. You are
I'll
the
take that.
coach. And so HR, aka Pop Huntsman, who have you seen in your career and who historically are people that listeners may be able to say, oh, okay, that's who he's talking about.
Yeah. One of my mentors from afar is John Maxwell. So I grew up my early cutting my teeth as trying to learn this understanding of what real leadership is would be John Maxwell. I've been to many of his seminars. He has no idea who I am. I've read all of his books. I was part of his impact club and all that.
Sure.
And so he is one of those that I look at and say, how he views leadership is how I view leadership. And maybe it's because he shaped a lot of that, but innately in me is this, and again, it comes from my broken childhood, right? That people freaking matter.
Yeah.
How we treat people matters. And then maybe it's my dad's NASA scientist brain in me that's able to do the systems and process and see the big picture of how manufacturing processing go together and the people who do it. I guess John Maxwell, for me, from a national perspective, would be that kind of person. Certainly, I've run into people along the way. We've worked with dozens and dozens of companies that I would, and your audience would know who any of these people are that embody, they really understand. They may not know how to get there, but they know they want to treat their people well. They know they want to create what we now have called a destination workplace. They want to create a place where people feel seen and valued and heard, where their work is meaningful. Putting these things together, manufacturing or building these things in construction makes our country and economy great. And I get to be a part of that. They know that. And I love working with those kind of people.
Love that answer. You've done, I think you said 4,000 talks. Um, has there been a moment while you're on stage or after you talk to a group that is the reason why you go back and do it again, right? Because I look at public speaking a lot like I look at playing golf. It can be tough. There's a lot of work that goes into it. But in every round I play, there's that one moment that keeps me going back the next time. And I look at public speaking the same way. Every time I've gotten off stage or during a talk, there's that one moment, that one person who resonates. Or what is one that comes to your mind when you think about the all the talks that you've done?
Yeah, JFK said, every time you get to stand up and give a speech, you should change the world. Every talk that, it's a privilege, right? It's a privilege that people invite us to bring impact or ideas or creativity or inspiration. That's a privilege to me. So whether it's a workshop like you and I get to work at FabTech this year together, like we get to impact people at FabTech, I'm just so honored and thrilled to be a part of that. And some of the programs you're working on there, we get to sponsor that emerging leader program, and I'm just stoked for that. So we get to impact the world, we get to change the world. So when I'm on stage, I mean, for me, that is one of my two sweet spots. Like, I love the phrase I use, and I teach public speaking. The phrase I use is, you get to move the room. Like, make sure you move the room. Do everything you can from the time you pick up that microphone to your mic drop moment when you walk off, that you leave some nuggets in there, some things in there. They're going to forget 80% of it, but you make freaking sure that there's going to be some things in there where someone goes, that was good. And they pick up their pen or they start typing in their phone and they're on their laptop. And you see, like you're doing right now, you see the head nod, you see the light bulb go on. And when I see the note taking or the light bulb, or afterwards they come up and say, H, that thing you said about culture, that thing you said about leadership, the challenge you gave me to be more connected, might be like, when they say that thing, I'm like, that's why I'm here. I mean, I get to live in my purpose. I get to carry out my mission. And when I see that happening and those light bulbs go on and those things come back to me, that's just a sweet spot. That day, in that moment, I got to change the world.
I love that. So, building off of that, throughout every conversation you and I have had today, since we've started recording, you've talked about mindset. And you talked about principles. You've talked about discipline as foundations of that lasting success. You've talked about changing the world. Can you walk us through what that mindset shift looks like in changing trajectory for an individual?
I think this is one of the hardest things I'm ever asked to describe. So when people, like, I ran a counseling center and I would talk to people and they would know my story and came through this family, and my brothers weren't able to break free. They succumbed to drugs and alcohol, and two of my three younger brothers are no longer with us because of this stuff. And I was able to break free. And they say, how did you do it? And part of me says, I just did it. I don't really know, but that's not a very good answer. That doesn't help people very much. So as I go back and interrogate it and teach it now, I teach a lot on mindset. One of the most requested talks I have is on mindset. Here's my short answer to a long series of layers. You have to love the dream of your future more than you hate your current position. Whether you're battling with drugs and alcoholism, or you're frustrated at work, or you don't know anything about leadership, or you hate your job, whatever it is, if the vision of your preferred future isn't more powerful than the pain of your current present, you're not going to change.
Holy shit.
So if I don't have a passionate dream in front of me that compels me to be different than I am today, if I don't have that, I'm not going to change. Change for what? Change just because I hate my current place, but change into what? I mean, what kind of man or woman or husband or wife or leader or work do I want to be? If I haven't painted a clear picture of that better future that I love more than I hate my current present, I'm not going to change. And I've seen it thousands of times when people don't change because they don't have anything to change to. So for me, the way I teach it is, you have to fall in love with a different version of yourself, a different version of the leader you are today. Just yesterday, I just had a painful conversation with one of my favorite leaders I'm working with right now. And he has this enormous blind spot that his staff has brought to his attention, and it's brought him to his knees, and it made him angry and ashamed. It's like, H, I don't have the relation with my staff I thought I have. I'm not the leader I thought I was. And I said, well, this is a gift. Now you have a choice. You can remain angry and frustrated and ashamed, or You can paint a different version of yourself for the future. And right now, he's still angry and ashamed and hurt. And if he doesn't receive this critique as a gift of the man and the leader he could be, if he doesn't change his mindset, he doesn't get to change the leader that his team and his family want.
Wow. Every episode has a mic drop moment, and you've had a couple, but that was I think the moment that you were talking about from being on stage. I didn't nod my head, but you stopped me in my tracks, and that's why I wasn't nodding my head, because all of a sudden my mind went from asking pop questions, HR questions, to my own future vision for myself. Right. And do I love that more? Do I have a greater sense than just changing my current situation? Man, that was amazingly powerful, HR.
Thank you, brother. I mean, I go back to my, I talk about that 9-year-old boy in the desert with Scamp, and the odds are against that kid.
Yeah.
The statistics are not in his favor at all. Later in my high school years in that Texas Club parking lot, I began to think like, I want a healthy family. I want a strong marriage. I want to leave a mark. I want to make an impact. And I begin to, in a rudimentary form, I mean, I was 15 at the time, in a very 15-year-old rudimentary form with my 8-color crayon box, I began to paint this picture of the future that has become more and more elaborate and beautiful over the years as I've continued to learn how to paint future for myself and for others. But I began to paint a future of like, I want something different. Here's the marriage I want. Here's a family I want. Here's a legacy I want. Here's the impact I want. And that drives my 60-year-old self. I am just as passionate as at 60. In fact, even more so. Like this year for me is the biggest year of my life. I've picked big projects and big things that we're doing in Africa and here in the States, and big things we're developing for the countries we work with, the companies we work with. I mean, and that vision is more passionate in me than it even was at 15. So that future of what I'm leaving for my kids, and now I have 2 grandsons, like that still compels me to go forward at learning and growing and being more and more curious. I'm still climbing to that summit.
So you brought up kids, your grandkids. You've been married for over 30 years, HR.
Yep. 38 this year.
Dang, congratulations.
Thanks, brother.
That's an achievement. Given your lived experiences that you've had, the family that you grew up in, how has the family that you chose, the family that you created, that you built together with your wife, how has that impacted that future view that you talk so passionately about?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. Again, you would never go back to that 9-year-old boy and ever think that I look at that kid and it's like, I can't believe that was me. Just, I would never have dreamed that I would have the privilege and honor of getting to be married to who I'm married to, and the kids that I have and the grandkids and what I get to do and the life I get to lead. But what I've learned is we architect our own future. Like wherever you are, you've decided to be there. And some people don't want to hear that, because they've chosen a victim mindset. No, I'm here because my family was this and my parents were this and my boss is crap. Or it's like, no, extreme accountability says you are exactly where you've chosen to be. You choose this job, you choose that leadership, you've chosen to live this way, you've chosen your mindset, you've chosen how you react, you've chosen how you talk. That's all you. And one of the most important things that I've ever learned is we get to architect our future very intentionally and proactively. And so what I teach and what I try to do and what I believe I've lived out fairly well is I have built and architected with my wife a very different family than I grew up with, very different. And each day we choose to be very intentional about how we parent even our 30-year-old kids. We're very intentional about how we grandparent our 2 grandsons. We're very intentional about how we build our company and how we build the programs that impact dozens of companies. We're very intentional. We architect it. We clearly want to see what we want to build. So, I mean, advice to give to people is you're not a victim of where you are. You're not a victim. You do not give your power away to anybody else. And leaders that I speak to, you want a different culture in your company? We can architect it. You can architect. You can build it with Jim or with me or yourself. Take the power back. You're in control of your own life.
I love that, man. And the emotion is real. The vulnerability is real. And I I look at vulnerability as one of the most underrated leadership skill sets. And I can tell just in our conversations we've had why you've been an impactful leader, why you have changed the world, because you're not afraid of who you've been and you show up authentically and vulnerable in every conversation that you and I have had. So I can only imagine you do that with people that you build trust with over time as well. So then I appreciate everything that you're saying and you just showing up and being you. HR, I want to take a little bit of a shift in gears here because I want to know with what you've seen over the course of your career, what you've seen through Leader's Edge, in your, I'm going to quote unquote this retirement, because let's be real, you work just as hard now as you did when uh, you were in your career stage. HR, what is coming to manufacturing as we become more technological and we have to adapt the way that we lead away from that command and control style that you are so you put out there so eloquently in that John Wayne moment, right? How do we have to evolve and what's the future of manufacturing look like when it comes to leadership?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely take advantage of every technology, every AI, every improvement you can to be more efficient, more profitable. Absolutely take advantage of that. But do not ever mistake the fact. Do not ever make the error that you think you can overlook the human infrastructure that is running all of those plants and those lines and those factories and those sites. And do not ever think for a second that you can dismiss the power of collaboration, the power of creative conflict, the power of inspiration. Don't think for a second that AI or technology or machinery is ever going to replace the human factor. It's not going to. It can help us. It's a wonderful tool. It's a fantastic screwdriver, but do not ever think for a second that we can overlook the human component in how we build out our leadership and human infrastructure. And the winners of tomorrow are the people who understand that collaboration and great communication and empowerment of others is the way to that future. Those are the winners of tomorrow, not the people who think leveraging AI and technology is how you win. Wonderful tools. Absolutely use them. Get out of the Stone Age. If you're still living back in the Stone Age of manufacturing, get out of the Stone Age, but you better freaking make sure that you understand, especially with Gen Y and Gen Z, you better make sure that you are collaborating, you are listening, you are valuing, you are hearing, you are empowering, or you're going to lose the game.
Absolutely. Listeners to the show, this won't come as any surprise because a lot of them have heard me say this before, either in person at speaking or through my workshops or on the show itself. Industry 4.0 was great, brought us a lot of really cool tools and technologies, but a lot of companies tried to implement those through that command and control leadership style. They went to a trade show, saw a flashy new tool that they said, "Oh, this is awesome. It's going to change everything on my shop floor." They came back to their shop and they said, "You will use it." And now they're sitting on tools that aren't being utilized to their capacity. And I believe, and I defer to you a little bit on this, I believe it's because they didn't ask their employees, what do you think will actually solve the problems that you face on the floor? Do you think there's any validity to that? That's
Oh, it's 100% valid. One of the things as humans that we crave most is autonomy. We want to be part of our own success. And so not asking those people the questions, how would this impact you? Do you think this is a good idea? How are we going to implement this? How are we going to execute? What's the difficulties or challenges to overcome in the implementation? Like not asking those questions, not sitting around and around the proverbial campfire and having those discussions is a violation of autonomy.
yeah,
That
absolutely.
micromanagement, that command and control, that directorship rather than a development mindset, you're violating the human nature of the people that you want to jump on board.
I love that. HR, as we wrap up here, I've got one more question about you, and then my final question I ask everybody. With you knowing that you want to love that future version of you, what's next for you? What does the future version of HR have in store for us?
Yeah, I'm still growing. I'm still learning. I'm still creating. Like I said earlier, I'm more passionate than ever about helping build destination workplaces. The future of me is continual growth in this space of speaking and writing. We're going back to Africa. We're drilling wells and building a medical center in Kenya next year. Here in the States, continuing to work with amazing manufacturing and construction and other industries to refine how they do things and how they treat people. It sounds like more of the same, but every year I just continue to learn and grow from people like you and all the great leaders that I get to work with. And I get to take all that knowledge and multiply it everywhere that we travel and all the companies we get to work with.
So, this isn't my final question, and I'll get to that in a minute, but how can people work with you when it comes to Leader's Edge? And how can people work with you in the philanthropical, I guess I want to say, efforts that you have around the world? Because from my standpoint, I love the Leader's Edge stuff, but I want to know how I can become more involved with some of the wells you're digging, some of those other efforts that you have out there. So anybody who's listening, how can they get involved with you and your causes?
Yeah, let's go Leader's Edge. I mean, if you're listening to this and you want to help build a workplace that's meaningful and purposeful and more efficient and more profitable, where people are seen, heard, and valued, and you want to develop your own leadership, we'd love to help. Just email me, hr@yourleadersedge.com. The Huntsman Hope Foundation is the extension because we believe that wealth has a purpose and meaning to it. We just don't build up piles of cash for our own purpose. I believe that we as leaders, in my view of the world, should give back to people in need. So that's why I created the Huntsman Hope Foundation. And you can still email me at hr@yourleadersedge.com or hr@huntsmanhopefoundation.com. And I would certainly love to talk about how we can change the world together.
Love it, man. You'll get an email from me, and I hope my listeners reach out to you as well for either one of those, because I think I do leadership development, but I don't think that there's too much when it comes to developing that next generation, right? I don't look at HR. There's a reason I have HR on this show right now, right? I don't look at HR as a competitor. The more that we all work together to change the leaders of this industry, of this world, of this country, the better off we're all going to be. The more that HR is able to help organizations create those destination workplaces that he aims to create, the better off everybody's going to be. I'd love to have you at one of my workshops, and I'd love to come to one of your leadership workshops in the future, man. And like you said, we get to work together at Fat Tech, which is pretty fucking cool. So pardon my language. I cuss on my own show. It's all right. I'm marked permanently explicit on Apple, so it's part of the fun of my job. Anyway,
I can't wait to learn from you, my friend.
it'll be a lot of fun. It'll be great. So HR, the question I ask every guest at the end of this show is awesome because neither one of us really know what direction the conversation's going to go in. So I want to know, what haven't we talked about that you want to share with the audience today?
What haven't we talked about? I think one of the most important principles that the leaders we work with and the teams we work with, that is hard for them to practice, but is absolutely imperative that they do, is this idea that we call creative conflict. The companies, the cultures that really win, Jim, the cultures that really succeed are the cultures that are able to have respectful dialogue and disagree in a healthy, honorable way. Psychologists have two kinds of conflict. They have personality conflict. You ate my tuna fish sandwich out of the refrigerator last week, so I don't like you. For some reason, you just rubbed me the wrong way. And then there's idea conflict. And we absolutely promote conflict around ideas. Most companies don't take the time to do this. They say we're too busy. We're too busy to have these meetings you talk about. And when I hear that, is what I tell back to them. What I just heard you say is we're too busy to innovate. We're too busy to improve. We're too busy to collaborate. We're too busy to create. When you say we're too busy for those kinds of meetings, you're stuck in where you are, and the companies that take this time are going to pass you by. You are in the slow lane, my friend. So the companies that intentionally create spaces of creative conflict, how can we improve our process flow? How can we improve client care? How can we improve communication protocols from different departments? How can we whatever? And they can have those creative conflict sessions where there is heat and some friction. That's how we get sharper, right? That's how we get sharper. So creative conflict is one of the most important things we teach. And it's one of the most important things that most manufacturing and construction overlook because they don't know how to do it.
So the personality conflict, Creative conflict, I get. The idea conflict, I get. The personality conflict, is there a solution for that? Especially, I mean, I've walked into shops and watched people get into fistfights, not because they were upset about somebody had a different idea, but because they just didn't like them. Is there a solution to that personality conflict?
And this is why most leaders avoid idea conflict, is because they think, I don't know how to deal with personality conflicts. I don't want any more conflict.
Yeah,
I have enough
exactly.
conflict. Susie and Ben can't stand each other, so they can't even work together. The first thing is to help people realize that you need to be freaking adults at work, and you need to show up as an adult and stop acting like a child, and a leader who can sit people down and say, let's have an adult conversation about why the two of you don't get along. There's no simple answer to this, Jim. It begins with, we're going to have an adult culture where we treat each other with respect. And I'm going to treat you as I'm going to model what that looks like. And we expect, and we hire people, and we hold people to that standard that we treat people with respect, even when we disagree. But when Susie and Ben are throwing down in the shop floor, we're letting the tail wag the dog right there. Like, we've let it go too far. In that particular instance, there's a sit down conversation, but way ahead of that, before we have fisticuffs thrown on the factory floor, we need to have conversations about respect and how we carry ourselves here at ABC Incorporated.
I love it. Well, there's another knowledge bomb for everybody. HR, I really want to thank you for your time. Again, your authenticity, your vulnerability, the way you show up to every conversation, whether you're on stage, whether you're on a podcast, whether you're just on a Zoom call with me on a random Monday morning 6 months ago, you show up the same you every time. And that's rare, unfortunately, but it's really fucking cool, man. It's dig that about you. I know we're going to be friends long term. I'm so excited to work from you, to learn from you. Thank you for sharing your time, your wisdom, and your story with us today.
Thanks, brother. It's been an honor, and keep doing what you're doing. You're making the world a better place. I'm proud to be connected with you.
Me as well, man. Thank you very much. We'll talk soon. There was a moment when HR said, you have to love the dream of your future more than you hate your current position. That quote was the quote of the episode, and it dropped like a wrench in a silent shop. Because we've all been there, haven't we? We've been stuck between what we were handed and what we want to build, staring down a version of ourselves we're ready to outgrow. HR Huntsman survived a hard beginning, and he rejected the script. He rewrote it line by line, with intention, with fire, and with a faith that a different kind of life was possible. Not perfect, but purposeful, intentional. And if that doesn't speak to the heart of leadership, I don't know what does. So if this episode has moved you, challenged you, or given you something to think about, please rate and review the show. Share it with your grandma, your coworkers, your leaders. Every time you share, rate, and review the show, it rockets us up the algorithm to help other people find the show. Again, my deep thanks to HR Huntsman for sharing not just his expertise, but his truth, his vulnerability, his story, for showing us that legacy is what we build every single day. You can find this episode and all of our other episodes. You can find more episodes like this at themfgconnector.com. Follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok to stay connected with all the things that we've got going on. And don't forget to check out our other shows, Work But Make It Human, which is our leadership podcast, and the Manufacturing Connector over on YouTube, where we explore ideas, tools, technology, frameworks, and conversations shaping the industry. Thank you, dear listeners, for spending time with us today. If you take nothing else from this episode, take this. We are not the sum of what broke us. We are the architects of what comes next. Thank you.